Welcome back to the workshop. My name is Jaco. We do jewelry related training videos. I should say training videos. Are we training people? No, we're not training people, are we?
It's kind of like a training video. If you decide what these videos are to you guys. There we go. Lugie, show your face, boy.
Lugie, who's this? Who's this?
Say hi. Look what's here.
My name is Jaco. That's the Maya behind the camera. We did say that we're going to speak a little bit about platinum, and we have had a few questions regarding the metal, the noble metal.
I will be playing the part of the curious beginner goldsmith and asking you questions.
I'm going to be giving you my personal opinion about it, but also I've been working with it for the last 30 years, so I have a very good understanding of the metal. This is what today's video is about. Maya, what do we have?
We got the first question. Why do I see platinum crucibles for sale? What do they cast with them?
The concept of casting platinum into an ingot is not how I work with platinum. I can only tell you what I do and what I've done and what works for me. I would usually use this type of crucible in my workplace, and what I do is I just turn them upside down. You can see how rough they are on the back or on the side, like there. And then I would put the platinum together and just melt it into a blob of some sort, and then from there onwards, often I'd put it into my vise and I'll squeeze it so I've got two flat surfaces, and from there onwards I can go into my rolling mold.
What do you alloy with pure platinum? I heard about palladium. Anything else?
Platinum is mixed down to 95%, no lower. And then what happens is that that 5% you could usually use either copper. I've seen people use gold mixed with ruthenium. Cobalt can go into that as well. It's a very small percentage. Platinum is a very high purity. Technically you can mix anything in there and it's going to give you a different result. Copper works fine. In fact, that's what I'm working with at the moment. And I've also used the ruthenium, and I've also used the cobalt mix. The cobalt mix tends to be the one where when they're casting, it seems, because it's magnetic, which I don't like. It's very hard on the burrs when I'm trying to set. I'm okay with the copper mix, which is what I'm currently using, and the ruthenium I think was the other one that we used, which is a platinum group metal. But they all work very similar. You might be surprised how cobalt affects it though, because it's quite hard. Platinum has a certain resistance to it, and whatever you're mixing into it is going to affect that resistance.
I heard it's super nice to work with. Is it almost elastic?
It's soft in its essence, but it's very compact. So when you're cutting it, you're going to find that it gives you more resistance, but it's not giving you resistance in a hard way where you can't cut it. It is soft, it is elastic as you put it, but it allows you to get more detail out of cuts, because you're not going to run with a blade like you do with silver. If you're cutting with silver, it's just you're very quickly going to run into the metal. This is going to give you resistance back, but it gives you a very gentle resistance, a very soft resistance. So you make your way through with a saw blade, but you're going to make it through slower, which actually allows you to get more detail out of a cut. So win-win. The next question deals with losses and management of filings and that kind of thing. It is important. Platinum works differently. You don't go about it with the same principles as you would with gold or silver. I would approach platinum in a way that I really work out as fine as I possibly can. A lot of the work I would work it out exactly to where I want it, or if I wanted slightly wider ring, I would order a slightly thinner piece because I know I'm going to hammer it. So rather than filing a profile into something, I would usually hammer the profile flat to get that extra bit of width out of it. I would work to the minimum so that I know my losses are minimum, and I do that because the recovery, as you ask, is more expensive. Everything in platinum is more expensive, although the metal per gram at the moment, which is insane, is less than gold. The weight of the metal still accounts for more value because it's heavier. So the same item in gold or platinum, the platinum will be heavier. So that's something to consider. And the other thing is your refining process is more expensive. Your polishing is more expensive because it takes longer. It requires more skill, so everything takes more time. When it comes down to filing, I tend to shape most of it with a hammer, and I try and keep the losses to the minimum. That's really the way I approach platinum. So I do look at it differently than what I would look at it as working with gold.
What is your best device to melt platinum?
If you really have the space for it, a cutting torch is the best thing on the back of a crucible. It's really going to cut down on your time and make sure that that platinum goes down real quick. But you can get it done with a Smith's little torch. providing that the nozzles are big enough, and of course volume plays a role as well. My best advice will be, if you can, get a cutting torch, laser eyes or something.
Yeah, if only we became the tools we use. Can you use the same tools with gold and platinum?
So the main problem with platinum is contamination. If you're bringing the solder pick that you would use, let's say for instance using a stainless steel solder pick to gently pick up a piece of solder and put it on top of a silver or gold, and you've got a little bit of that solder floating onto the tip, or even just the tip itself, you will contaminate the platinum. Steer away from that. That's a good question actually, because you have to keep these tools separate. I use a separate titanium tipped solder pick. That's a good idea. Keep it completely separate. I don't use flux when working with platinum, so I never have the tip going dirty. Anything that has contact while the platinum is hot has a potential to contaminate it. So be careful even with the tips of your fire tweezers. If you heat up the platinum, it requires a lot of heat, and sometimes that heat gets higher than the actual melting point of what holds it. So you might have the steel that holds the point of the platinum transferring onto the platinum, melting onto the platinum, thus contaminating the platinum, and that's a nightmare. You want to get rid of that. If you've got any of that, you can't work with it any further.
What's the best?
Titanium tips. I've customized some of my fire tweezers to have titanium tips. If you're going to get into it, make sure that you've got a cobalt or titanium tipped tweezer. The rule of thumb here is clean everything away, make sure everything is off, and have a separate set of tools when you're working with platinum. That's the best advice I can give you on this.
Issues with soldering and polishing.
The very first thing I do with platinum, if I make, say for instance, a wedding band, the very first solder I always do, it's not a solder, it's a fusing. Cut it through like you would when you're doing an actual normal solder. So prepare it to that point, and then roll out a piece of platinum as thin as it can get, and it sticks out at least 2 or 3 millimeters, or probably 3 millimeters, all around the ring, the inside, the sides, the top as well. I would heat this up to a point that it gets melting, but because it's so much thinner, the platinum will melt, the thin platinum will melt first, and by the time it reaches the actual surface of what you're trying to solder, it will fuse onto that platinum, because this hot platinum will then fuse with the actual band itself. You do this all the way around, and if you do that, you have no solder mark. Then you can polish to your heart's desire. There will never be a mark that comes out because of what you've done. It's really the best way to go about it if you're doing some single stuff, and I would really urge you to practice it on some plain bands. Get a little strip of platinum, bend it around, try this method. When pieces come in, especially when I'm doing repairs or anything like it, and we have to do a sizing, and you're heating it up, you find that people have used different solders. You're almost always getting a little dent around that area, and that's not because you've done a bad job on the soldering. That's because when you want to try and achieve the maximum polish that platinum allows you to have, you can't get to the actual best result of polish without that platinum solder that you've used actually polishing out. There are different grades of platinum solder. You're getting the really highest one. This is the one you want to start off with and try and keep as long as you possibly can. And then you get the ones right down to easy. If you're going to go for easy solder and you're closing a ring, you will definitely have the polish machine opening it up. So I would really recommend only to use that kind of stuff for repairs. I would go for the hardest solders you possibly can, and then when you're working it off, this is the most important part. When you're working it off, go all the way down as far as you possibly can. If you've got any scratches or anything left over there, you have to get that polished out. And by the time the scratch polish is out, if you're using the polisher to try and get rid of that, you've most certainly opened up the solder mark. It polishes away the bit of solder, so you have the little ridge there. Try and avoid that by doing a complete polish on the desk with paper, so that it's almost shiny, and then you just touch it slightly, very lightly, touch it. So you're just giving it the last little bit of shine on the polishing machine. All of these questions are videos on their own. Please add in any follow-up questions. What we're going to do is we're going to compile another video, a follow-up video on platinum. I like to describe it as the cat metal. Silver and gold's dog metals. They're like, happy, what can we do for you? We're always there, you know. Platinum on the other end is like a cat. It's like a cat is very selective of who he wants to work with. You have to earn the respect of the metal, and then you get an abundance of love back. Listen, I've got to get back to a very urgent red gold 18 karat ring with a sapphire and some diamonds in it, which you're probably going to see in one of the videos soon enough.
Ah, fantastic.
But I have the exceptionally long time of one day to do this ring.
It's not even a full day.
Yeah, this is a nervous laugh. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you very much for watching this video as per usual. Thanks, Damia, for filming this thing and disrupting my day.
No, it's my pleasure every time. Thanks, everybody. See you
Cheers.
next week. Bye.
I don't know why I'm not called a platinum smith.
I wonder what you need to do to become a platinum.
It can be a
smith.
silversmith, a goldsmith, but now with the platinum smith. That's
Maybe
just
it's something, a term that's out there.
yeah.
Maybe there's something you do to be.
Do you guys know about platinum smiths? Maybe that's only
Is
if
that
you
a
work in
thing?
platinum. We just smiths, aren't we?
Yeah, we just make things. We don't. It's not even limited to jewelry. It's
We're just making little stuff. We make jewelry, we
Fences.
make fences, yeah, I make music. I've even made Damia.